Hello, I'm Bartek from the Stream, and today I want to invite you to our latest episode of podcast AI in Data Talks. Today our topic is AI in category management. Enjoy our discussion. Welcome to AI and Data Talks, your fast track for mastering AI and data for leaders in category management. I'm Bartek from the Stream, and today we'll be unpacking AI in category management, how to drive value, how to increase growth, and how to categorize product in a good way. Today our guest is Kuba. Hello, Jakub.
Hi, Bartek. Thanks for having me. I'm Jakub Dubowik. I'm AI strategy advisor at the Stream.
Okay, so the first question is, what real challenges do retail leaders face right now?
Well, that's a tough one. But yeah, the retailers currently are facing a perfect storm, frankly. There's a kind of waning customer demand, changing prices, tight margin, and unoptimal pricing, and kind of guesswork around promotion. So these are just to name a few problems that are there in the field. That's why it's so hard to navigate this space. Also, predicting the future is especially hard nowadays. I recently read that in a new study that only 7% of companies in retail achieve 90% and over accuracy of their forecasts, with the average in the industry around 50%, right? In the recent kind of retail big show, NRF in New York in January 2026, there was a very clear message that AI might be the solution to this problem, right? It was transpired and this was unmistakable, recognized by all the leaders and attendees. I remember also the incoming CEO of Walmart, John Furner, even coined it the agentic being the new great wave, the great revolution in retail. He told about agentic changing how customer buys things, right? So how there is a shift from search to agentic-led commerce, but it also applies to a broader picture, how AI is applied throughout the retail. So for me, looking at the past kind of our deployments and looking at McKinsey report, like State of AI, so a lot of companies are experimenting with AI, like 88% of companies are doing something. 1/3 is actively scaling small POCs to production, and only, I think, 7%, if I'm correct, has a tangible kind of impact on the bottom line. So for me, like 2026, when it comes to challenges, is finding a way to bridge this kind of gap between AI experimentation and AI impact, like getting tangible value out of AI.
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like a Pareto rule, yeah? So 20% of effort makes 80% of results, yeah. And I have a question, what makes Gen AI and specifically agentic AI special here? So why it is a game changer?
So there are a couple of things probably are worth mentioning. So for me, the speed is most important. So it used to take months, weeks to get some crucial insights. Now with AI and agentic AI, we are able to do the same in hours, maybe minutes, in a very kind of performance systems. And the speed it also applies not only to the kind of how fast the results are get, but also how fast the people are getting value out of the solutions. There is a recent study by BCG when they are naming a Gen AI solution for merchants in retail that's supporting the negotiations with the suppliers that was able to achieve 20x ROI in a single year, right, in the same year of implementation. So that's a game changer. So another thing would be the change from reactive to proactive approach. Yeah, so instead of firefighting yesterday's problem, you can focus, anticipate price changes, demand shifts, and issues with your, for example, logistic chain. And kind of, we cannot also name the elephant in the room, so agentic. So with AI, you are getting answers, right? With agentic, you get something, you get tool that can plan, act, reason, and autonomously, right, on its own, within a given guardrails towards a given goal, right? So it's a total game changer. And I think what's worth mentioning that Gartner in the recent report outlines that it predicts that 40% of all of enterprise applications in 2026 will include some agentic components, right, in some of the tasks. And that's a great, vast step up from 5% in 2025.
Yeah. And how can we use AI to manage to improve assortment optimization?
So AI does this on multiple levels, right? It's doing a lot of data wrangling, but essentially it's crunching a lot of data points like sales history, customer preferences, trends, social sentiment, also some social demographic data around the shops, right? All to create some predictive SKU lists, to cluster the shops by performance, and to create some very tailored recommendations of the SKUs per every location, right? I think also in the same conference this year, Sam's Club, a major retailer in US, shared how they are using agentic AI, the internal agent, to do the optimization per store. And that's a game changer for them, because before it was done on a kind of annually or kind of periodically on a chain level, whole chain level. Here it's done kind of almost real time and on per store. So it's a total step up of the game. What I really liked about how it impacts Sam's Club was the kind of takeaway from this, that now with this solution, they're able to focus on the most important for them, right? For the merchants, it's like strategy, bonding with the suppliers, and product quality, while the AI and the agentic system does all the analytical heavy lifting.
Can we also model effective pricing with AI?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most performant and the highest ROI you can get is in elastic and dynamic pricing solutions. So AI agents can crunch different elasticity strategies versus different regions, components, SKU, and partitions, and arrive at the optimal simulation for a given demand and pricing points, right? So I remember that from our implementations and from kind of industry research, you can expect 5 to 10% lower markdowns. And what's most important especially for the kind of low margin industries like retail, you can reach like 2 to 5% better margins, right, on your products. And if you think about how you can plug this solution with some other in-store innovation like ESL, so electronic shelf labels, you can do terrific thing. You can do not like once a day or once a month change of price. You can even adjust your price of the same SKU versus different customer journeys. Like in the morning, there are lunch customers and there are evening customers. So each of those have different price sensitivities and different goals, and you can adapt to it. And these kind of systems allow you to change this kind of periodically, aligned strategy to more real-time and more kind of agile way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. And can we also use AI to optimize supply chains end-to-end?
Yes, I think it's a little bit of a cutting edge, I think, for this moment. But there are out there on the open already team of kind of dispersed agents that have each of those agents has responsibility for a given subset or a given kind of path of the whole logistics chain. Like one is doing the demand forecasting, another is doing inventory planning, and there may be also another responsible for planning the production, right? So, and they all collaborate, coordinate, right? And they can still achieve some kind of optimal solutions in this respect. I remember that I read like half a year ago, around like mid 2025, that Walmart was betting all in on agentic, and at this point they are using a lot of agentic solutions also in this respect. So there is this customer-facing Sparky agent, I think, that supports the customers in their customer journey. But there are also teams of agents responsible for different aspects of how Walmart works, right? So, for example, there is an agent specially catered for contacts with the suppliers, right? So, for merchandisers, there is a special one for in-store excellence when they're kind of, for example, employee scheduling plus realogram and planogram coordination, all those stuff. And and they are expanding on this, and they are betting strongly that this is the way to forward, and this is the proper way to achieve kind of winning story at the retail chain, right?
Yeah, and do we have any solutions to improve and to boost demand forecasting?
Well, demand forecasting, I think, is by far the most validated use case for AI. So, and from my experience, and also I think it's the same transpires from the industry reports, you can expect the AI solutions to cut your errors in half around, right? This like standard solutions will get you there. And this transforms and converts, let's say, 65% tops, like less overstock and of course less stock outs, right? So because these two things are closely bound together. But you can go further, right? There are also some interesting solutions that are already being deployed that build upon the standard kind of forecasting models, and it's a multi-agentic system. I think there's like multi-agentic plus RAG solutions. So you can think of agents working on different sub-problems of the forecasting. So there is like external sensing agent that goes and looks at the external of the company features, like weather, like commodity prices, like some social trends, sentiment. And there is the internal sensor agent that just grabs the historical trends, promotions, kind of sales strategies, right, the marketing documents. And there is a kind of coordinator, orchestrator that gets the feedback from those two agents and reconciles and creates kind of synergetic this kind of strategy and demand, right? That can be used in the end for production planning. So in the production, but also for the planning in stores, right?
Yeah, and using these tools, do we have any impact on in-store execution?
Yeah, so definitely whatever tools you have, right, be AI or standard, so even the best plan is nothing without the execution in store, right? And I can confirm that we see in our customers, and also it's visible in the available kind of white papers, that the stores that, for example, follow the planograms, so that the realograms, so the realized planograms and planograms have high concordance, those kind of stores, even within the same chain, right, they see better results, so better turnovers, better kind of sales, right? So in fact, this is immensely important to validate in-store kind of effectiveness of the solution created by AI and your AI agents. And how it's done is also it's an interesting story, because it's also evaluated by AI currently, right? Some time ago, it was used to be some kind of people taking pictures, and there was like manual checking if everything is in place. And now we can do it like almost in real time from security cameras. And I know that some retail chains are also relying on the mopping robots, right? As they are roaming the floor, as they clean the surfaces, they're also looking at the shelves, looking for a stock out potential, right? So they're also analyzing the planograms. So a lot of interesting use cases around kind of in-store excellence.
Yeah, and previously you talked a little bit about examples and numbers about which are results of using these AI tools. And do you have any other examples of real-world scenarios where those deployments were successful?
Yeah, so I mentioned quite a lot, and I would say that following the company's kind of the industry white papers will be the best place to go for those kind of numbers. Also, the conference that I mentioned in New York shared some interesting feedback from Sam's, from Walmart's, but what you can expect, depending on your use case, right? So let's reiterate. So for forecasting, so you can expect kind of cutting your error rates in half if you have a proper forecasting solution boosted by AI. And when you decide to go for pricing optimization, you can get up to 5% better margins, right? If you optimize it right for the right category. Probably even better if you go for some synergy with, for example, ESL, right? In-store innovations. So it's amounts. So currently, I think it's evident that a kind of AI and in retail has become kind of infrastructure, not an option, right? Not something that you can live without. And it helps alleviate some of the problems that I described in the beginning of our conversation, right?
Yeah. So the probably last question, but I think the most important one during this conversation is how can leaders start today?
That's a question we get quite often. So how do you start? I would say this. So start with your data, right? Because when you look at the historical success track of companies, usually those that have a proper kind of tech stack already and footprint and they have a clean house seem to do better in AI, right? Because you have a better foundations. And this can also be a kind of bootstrap and a kind of springboard to first implementation. If you don't have the clean data, maybe AI can help you clean this data, right? So this is the first kind of thing, kind of implementation point that you can think about. When you think about how AI can plan in your organization, don't kind of invent 10 use cases, focus on one kind of visible use case and tangible one. And here I'll come back to the use cases. So forecasting and pricing optimization seem to be reasonable and good candidates because they have a very clear ROI, right? It can be demonstrated in a given period of time. So these two things. For sure, when you think about AI, it's good to think about agentic, right? Because it's something that's, as I said, Gartner is predicting a huge kind of step up, a huge adoption across the industry. So as not only an insight generation tool, but also a thing that can act on your behalf, they can coordinate things, right? So agentic architecture is something you should definitely look for currently. And yeah, last but not least, something that was very clearly demonstrated even by the example of Walmart. So if you're a retail chain, make sure that you follow your customer. So if the customers used to be in the search, for example, right, they're coming through Google, now they're coming through from Gen AI browsers. And I remember the statistics, like the traffic from AI browsers last year, like year over year, 4,700% growth, right? So it's nothing you can neglect. So whenever you're a retail chain, you have to make sure that your infrastructure and then your data is available to the agent, not only to consumers, but is easily consumable, for example, standard protocol, MCP, right, or any other things that agent is using. Because I think soon, even now, this can maybe trailblazers, but soon there will be agents acting on behalf of consumers, doing purchases, doing analysis of, looking for deals, analyzing reviews, and making decisions, or without intervention of the human, right? So you have to make sure that your business is prepared for this. That would be my kind of takeaways.
Okay, thank you, Jakub. So it seems the future is promising for AI agents in this sales category. So we are going to look more deeply into it. Thank you for these insights. And if you want to hear more about AI, not even in this category, but in AI in general, stay tuned and follow us on our social media to be updated. Thanks.
Thank you.